Hey, Verlansky. All right, hello, everyone. Adjust my microphone here real quick. There we go. Hey, Leandro. How's it going, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Got a brand new week here. Oh, excuse this. I'm learning so many new things in C# that wasn't there back when I was using C# in Unity. Let's get over to our project here. We're gonna be working on our C# stuff. We're just gonna be working on recreating our autotiler in C# and hooking it into a new system for interfacing with the UI and the rendering. The Godot engine should be good. How's everyone week been so far? Block. Let's open this. Open our solution here. So I've been reading about some pretty cool things like record structs, which I didn't know about. Learned about some advanced features we're not going to use, like things like inline arrays, which we might get to at some point, but not right now. Stressful, needing a calming digital Iliad stream right now. Well, that is what I'm going to try to provide. We're looking at how to avoid doing some stuff so that we can use these fancy record structs. Looking at all the stuff we need to override to implement record structs. Don't really want to use an equality comparer. We're looking at some record structs are pretty cool. We're looking at how to construct our components, essentially. I had some ideas over the weekend about how to do components. Here's like a silly diagram I made. I call this like the chemistry. I'm gonna rename it here, actually. Chemistry diagram. It's like an idea of how to arrange components, where every component is essentially an entity. But you kind of have three different classes of entities. You have like the elements down here. And an element is like an indivisible component that may be combined with other elements to form compounds. So that's here. So like compound A. So like maybe a physical thing, like a movable object would have maybe a position element and a direction element. And that would form compound A. And then you could have compounds, like compound C, because a compound is like a combination of multiple elements in a static form, such that like, you know, components would always be present in a compound with the same composition. So like you wouldn't be adding and removing things to the compound. That would change the compound and it would become something else. So it's kind of like an archetyped pattern. And I thought about having something maybe a little more flexible, like a mixture, which could be a combination of more than one compound that may be intermixed at various ratios. So you could like add a compound, remove a compound. Like maybe a ship is crewed, so it has crew components, but maybe a ship is abandoned, so it has no crew components. Like, but I think this is like too much. I think this is like overcomplicating it. Yeah, we're jumping from autotiling to programming atomic structures. It was kind of an analogy that kind of holds up if you don't look at it too closely. I mostly slept through chemistry class, so it works for me. But I'm thinking this is like too much, and we're just gonna treat everything as a component. Like a component's just gonna be a component. And you can combine components as much as you want and nest components, like. So we'll probably need an archetype system. We'll probably just need components and archetypes for that. The benefit to me is that I can like predefine my archetypes, because we're not doing like a real ECS framework, because we don't need a real ECS framework, because we're not making an engine. Like the reason an engine has a full-on ECS framework is that it's like you don't know what your user's gonna do, right? You don't know what your user's gonna make. But we're making a game, so we don't need a full framework like that. We can predefine all of the combinations that we want to be able to support. Which is why over the weekend I made a bunch of scripts and named them all like ECS, and I started implementing a full ECS framework, and I realized that I was making decisions for the benefit of the ECS framework and not the game. And so I just started renaming everything. Like, we don't have systems now, we have managers. Like, managers might call down to other managers. Here's a manager. They're super simple. I actually might make the manager an interface instead of an abstract class, because all it really needs to do is implement a few methods. Doesn't even really need this concept of a game. We'll still borrow some stuff, like all our game is our node. It's our root node here. So like we have a game, and then I guess I'm gonna call this a board, which would be like where you put the actual elements of the game board, like ships, planets, like whatever you want to render that's a mechanical thing. I'll put there, and we'll put UI here. And this is like as simple as it's gonna be. We actually need to attach this script, is what we need to attach. And everything else is going to hook into the game. Like the like this input handler hooks into the game. The input handler is just going to build an array of arguments, of string arguments for a command. And it's just whatever that set of string arguments is going to be, it's just going to enqueue that command. And then we'll leave it up to the game to parse them and break them up and send them where you want, because we'd want separate queues for like edit commands and view commands. And it will just parse the string to do that. That way it's pretty general. We don't really need to know about our types ahead of, well, we need to know about our types, but the game script, not the game script, the input handler script doesn't need to know about our actual types of commands, because it really can't, because it's an input handler and it's in the gdscript side. So it doesn't really understand the C# side. So it really just needs to enqueue these simple strings. So that seems like a simple way to handle command stuff. Eventually we'll have signals on the input handler that get fired by either UI elements or characters on the board that are mouse pickable. Right now we're just processing all of the keyboard commands. I might split this up into a separate function to make that clear, but I think it's fine. But what we're interested in now essentially is like our entity. So there's going to be really no distinction but for us between components and entities. Components are entities. Entities are components. For some of them, they're not going to ever exist independently. Like a position is never going to just exist by itself, probably. Which is why I kind of came up with this element compound mixture thing, because we could limit functionality of simple building elements. But it doesn't really save us anything, because an element will still have an ID. I mean, we could not include the ID. The element could just be the thing. But then you can't get from one component to another, which is maybe something we don't want to support anyway. So I don't know. There's a million ways to skin a cat. And similarly, there's a million ways to make anything like an ECS. So we're kind of just deciding. The difference to us is that we're not treating the framework as like first-class citizen here. The framework for us is just maybe a way of viewing the data, and we're going to kind of come up with our own variant that's appropriate for the game. We're not trying to make a general solution here. I'm quite tired, though, because I stayed up till midnight just kind of thinking about this stuff. With not much to show for it, because I wrote a bunch of stuff, deleted it, wrote it, deleted it. You know how it goes. So I think I'm getting rid of this stuff. It was a cute idea. I don't think I'm going to use it. It's a component. Oh, hey, Eurist Games. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. How are you doing this fine day? I'm pretty sure there's... I'm avoiding using the word component because component and iComponent both exist in C#. Obviously in a different namespace, so it wouldn't be a huge thing, so... yeah. It's not a string. We're not going to use a string. We'll just use an integer. Call it entity ID. So we're going to use, instead of UUID, we're going to use the typical entity ID and version number. We're going to use get init. Init. Because our structs are going to be probably immutable. That seems like a better pattern. How are you doing, Eurist? We're making a not ECS for our game right now. Our game is kind of this, we're trying to make a FTL-like, a kind of isometric FTL-like. And we have a prototype of the core functionality of this tool, which is like this shipbuilding tool. Hey, Atagon, how's it going? But our shipbuilding tool, we can draw out shapes. Got a little cutaway system. So we have this system, we can keep drawing. We could draw another layer down here or whatever. So we have all of this. We can also rotate everything. So we have all of this in GDScript. Everything's backed by nodes. We're trying to move everything over to, at least all the simulation stuff, over to a C# layer, which is going to just handle the game data and the simulations. Atagon, redeem the hydrate. Thank you, Atagon. How are you doing? Any jams? Do any jams lately? I saw Score Chasers. I caught a little bit of that. That seemed fun. Thank you, Yurist. Appreciate that. Dever dies this weekend? Oh, okay, cool. What does that entail? I mean, obviously it entails deving or dying. Let's just hide these errors here. "12-hour on-stream jam." Oh. That's wild. Team-based? So is it going to be just like people, just like a mad dash? Excuse me for eating my breakfast. On stream like a monster. Solo? Oh, wild. That probably helps, though. No communication issues. And viewers vote on things you're forced to add. This sounds like torture. This is something you want to do? quad doors for Lansky. We will be able to support triple doors. That is as much as I can promise you, which is more than our system can currently do, mind. I promise an increase in doors by 50%. I'm trying to set up a trick-or-treating event at the moment for coworkers and coding streamers. Oh, that's hilarious. How do you imagine that working? All right, so we need to implement I-equatable entity. I-entities are going to be equatable with other I-entities. That's going to be a core function. And so our components aren't really going to have any inheritance. They're just going to all agree to implement I-entity, which we need to be careful about doing so that we avoid boxing. You ever done a bunch of info in the sign-up form? No, you mean do the jam where we can vote? We'd be the worst community for voting for features. Is out. No, you're great. But yeah, if I was forced to acknowledge and do exactly what you told me to do, we might have problems. We want to hash entities differently based on their version number, right? As well as their ID. That feels right. Another hydrate. Am I supposed to drink my coffee when I'm just drinking all this water, Adagon? All right, so we got our equals, we got our hash code. That's probably fine. We want to override the default implementation. I want to do turn equals return object. Yeah, return object is entity and other equals other. Does not all go in the interface? Probably not. Actually, no, we don't need to do that. Well, it's probably fine. What's up here? Let's make some actual entities, some actual components. What's a good one to start with? Start with the easy ones, like position. Freshwater Fern, hello, hello. How are you doing? Happy Tuesday here. We've recently dived into the world of C# in Godot, and I am still, I'm still very much learning. So we're kind of just waiting around. I feel like I'm misusing interface here, since I'm not getting an override of the hash code. Does the interface not need to implement all like a hash code necessarily? Can I just do that on the struct itself? Probably. What if you say public override? It's going to be implemented. How have you been? Let's get system in here. I haven't used C# for a long time, and I'm using a much newer version of it than I'm previously used to. I'm using system. Just let me use system. Hashcode dot combine entity ID and version. Oh, this is get hashcode. I was like, why am I having a problem? That's why. All right, so we're hashing more efficiently here. Got a little crib sheet here. You're not overwriting all of this? C# holds your interest. I really enjoy it. I've been reading so much about new features. Like, we're looking at the record struct right now, but I'm interested in some of these more advanced stuff that I have not. But I'm looking at the record struct, and I'm still like, I still kind of want to override a lot of stuff. But I like the stuff you just get for free by using a record struct, like all this generated stuff. But I don't want their implementation of hash code. I love that you just get it to string. You never pursue it. That's fair. When I picked up Godot about a year ago, I was like, I want to learn gdscript. But now that I've kind of enmeshed myself in gdscript for a while, I kind of want to do some other things. We're trying to move our project over to a world in which the UI and the rendering is all handled is all backed by nodes and handled by gdscript and stuff. But it feeds all of that stuff into a C# world, which is just simulating everything in data land, and it doesn't actually need to know about or interface with or be backed by nodes or resources or anything like that. And then all the stuff that needs to end up getting back to rendering and UI land can just eventually funnel back out. Yeah. But the generated, you get so much stuff just by using a record struct. If you look here, like a regular struct, it takes so long to do things and allocates and is just bigger. But if you just use a record struct by itself, I mean, if you just override the object functions, you get about most of this for some of this stuff. Not for everything. But yeah, if you use all of it, you get some good stuff. Because we're thinking about, if we're doing something like an ECS, we're probably going to have a sparse and a dense list. So having a really fast dictionary get is going to be good. Having everything be, and having all components just be an entity is also really good. But what have you been working on lately? Yeah, we pay a little bit for this equality comparer, so I feel like it's maybe not worth it to do all of this, but I'm kind of just trying to, I'm doing this just to almost get used to how this works again. Oh, we also need an IEquatable for a specific, for each type. Sorry if I'm a little low energy this morning. I did not sleep very much. So I think I'm mostly happy with this entity here. Why do you want a new keyword here? I don't understand some of these context actions, and they bother me if I don't understand them. Compiler warning, keyword new is required. Is it? I feel like that's not true. And we want to implement an equals on the interface, because components might compare each other to other components, in which in that case is just a check to see if they're the same entity. Well, actually, no, they won't be, will they? But we still need to implement this. Well, no, you're never going to complain. You're never going to compare heterogeneous entities, are you? Because if each component is an entity, no, we don't even need this, do we? We don't even need this entity. I was like, why does this feel wrong? It's because we don't need this. I don't think we need this. We're gonna get rid of it for now. Well, we can just ignore it. Let's just ignore it. This is where, like, I feel like this is where I like my kind of weird, stupid, like, element compound mixture thing. Because having an element be a full-blown entity feels weird. If all it does is form compounds, and the compounds are the only thing that's going to exist, like, independently. But I think this is stupid and overcomplicated, and we're just going to have components are entities, and you can mix components together ad nauseum. We'll probably still We'll probably write out in advance all of the archetypes that we'll have. Maybe there are such primitive components that they aren't entities, but I don't know. The position doesn't really have an identity outside of what it belongs to. It's more of an aspect of something than it has any independent identity. So in that case, maybe these do need to match. In which case, it would just be a check to see if we've reinitialized everything correctly when we, like, increment an entity. Things to think about. For now, let's just compare the value. I may or may not use this. But I think it's a good idea to start. Let's see if there's a level of complexity under which we don't actually need the entity information. I think Godot vectors use regular ints. Is that right? Yeah, okay. They're not like 64-bit. Yeah. We need an override for... I guess we should do a null check. That would be probably reasonable. Because it is... I like seeing these. I like seeing what it wants to do. Okay, object is position does the null check for us. That's the wisdom. Why is this red? That's the kind of thing that I want to know. Why is this red? Okay, we're overriding stuff. So we're overriding the object stuff. I don't know why this is red though, is the thing that I don't like. Make it an expression body, that's pretty good, I guess. Can also technically make this an expression body. You know, it sometimes does not, and I don't understand why, and it's usually something I've forgotten. I don't understand. Some small detail. Like, what if I close this and I like reopen it? Yeah, so I don't know why it doesn't like object. Object is object. Hey, tuner nerds, how's it going? I hope the other nerd is doing okay. I know they're sick. We're working on this idea that we have where components are entities and components can just be combined. It's kind of an idea that I'm pulling from this genius, Sander Martins. Trying to remember which of this articles it is. It's after this one. ECS identifiers. He just has this idea of component IDs being entity IDs, and it makes it so you can just add entities to other entities, or add components to other components. So you could say a thing has a thing. So like we could say, like a crew could be an entity on its own that has its own components. And then we could say a ship has a crew. And we could just list out those things. So I'm very tempted by this idea. What about bottom right? It says one error in file. Oh yeah, that's probably the secret. Remember with the same signature is already declared. This is very much not the same signature. This is public bool equals position other. This is public override bool equals object object. Pourquoi? Type equatable position is already implemented implicitly. Is this has to do with my record struct here? Ah, I see. It's because I made a record struct, which I like. I kind of want the record struct. I want to be able to do a two-string. So do we just not use record struct? How does that look on our little chart here? Because record struct just gives us a bunch of stuff. So like, so this is the one that implements iEquatable. So how did you manage this without complaint? Public override bool equals object object. So you still manage this somehow. Let me see if this is oh, it doesn't override. Okay, I think record struct already does this. I think record struct just gives us this. So I was doing something twice that I can't override myself. But it's weird because you can override get hash code. Because this overwrites get hash code. We just used our own get hash code. But for some reason it's not letting me override the equals object with this signature. Oh, it's, kind of weird. Can you have two methods and depending on what you pass in, it goes to a different one? Yes, that is like function overloading. And it's something that I wish gdscript had more than anything. You can specify, you get a different, we could have public bool equals and then we could just keep changing out what this is and have it process it differently. gdscript gets very upset when you try to do that. Yeah, there's a bunch of shiny new C# functionality that I want to learn, and that's kind of why I'm stumbling through it. Why is this auto property access or value.init is never used? Is it because I don't have a constructor? I probably need a constructor. So why are you upset with me here? Oh, because it is supposed to be position. Position equals position. Oh. Oh, value. Oops. So this might be overkill, having a component for position. Is maybe my decision. I almost would rather just assign a position to things that have a position. Like it would be one thing if we had a movable component and the movable component had like a position and a direction, or we had a directional component. I have to decide how far down we want to go with this. There's options. There's options, and I'm not sure what I want to do. I like the idea, the blanket idea of Sonder here of just component IDs or entity IDs. And the easiest way to do it is to just use entity IDs for components. So we can tag them with other components. We may or may not need like a reflection, but maybe we do for writing stuff out to JSON. That'll be slow, but whatever. This is one of those things where you're getting a little too far into ECS as a framework, and you're getting away from ECS as like something you need for a specific game. But this is the dude that wrote Flex, so it's fair. It's very fair. But it's still like a cool idea to me. But that said, you don't need to add, like, I don't know. Like if you add something to a position and you say something's at this position, that's one way of doing it. And that way you could actually find things at position because the position entity owns these other entities. So having them all be similar, 2D or 3D game. Hey Maxim, it's isometric 2D. So this is kind of the art style. We're going for like an isometric kind of FTL kind of look. Kind of a side on. It's not pure isometric, it's more like dimetric. It's more, the camera angle is lower, so it's more side on. And we've kind of been working on a tool, a tile building tool here. So you can just kind of build out shapes, assemble rooms. Doors on said rooms. You can also rotate everything around. So we've already managed to separate the game data from the rendering data. And the rendering data is just a view into the game data. And so we're kind of taking that a step further now by trying to put everything off into like a data land that isn't backed by nodes or anything. And that's kind of what we're working on right now. And I'm kind of remembering how C# works and learning some new things that were not in C# the last time I used it. So that's kind of what we're doing. I don't know why I keep drawing the same shapes whenever I demo this. So yeah, so it's a 2D game in kind of a 3D space is probably how I'd put that. But how are you doing? How's it going to this fine Tuesday here? I need to put an escape key that just exits out of the program. Because I like having exclusive full screen here so I can demo everything. I can also just do that. Get rid of all these weird engine errors. But I'm not concerned about because we're radically changing the way we think about doing this. But yeah, I needed some more time to cook on this component stuff before before doing it live here. I'll work on it tonight. Like I'm not sure if it makes sense for a position to be. Let's just make a primary constructor. There you go. You just get only. Okay, so we don't need to do the init. Yeah, I think this might be too low. We probably will, anything that has a position will probably have a position vector. And we'll probably just implement some comparisons. Because I'm thinking of using an array of structures for my entities anyway, instead of a structure of arrays. Because I actually don't think I'm going to be like operating over just sections, over just subsections of an entity, really. I think I'd rather have an array of structures. And if I have an array of structures, we could almost just implement like an interface like iPosition, so that like if a struct has a position, it can compare itself to another position, and the iPosition would have like a thing of like, do we collide or something like that. And if we get an AABB, we can do something similar, where we can have like overlaps and stuff like that. Maybe that's how I want to do it. Yeah, I'm not sure I need these to be full-blown entities. I don't know. Love the style, and tool is very interesting. Will it be public in the future? I don't know. The tool is very particular to my exact use case. I definitely want to make a video about it. I definitely want to make when it's done, I want to make a video about how to do it, because it uses a fairly new tile map in Godot. It uses the tile map layer, and it does it using isometric, which is unusual. But it's also very much just an artifact of my game. All right, let's make a component that is like more important or more central. That might be an entity, or like a block. I don't think a block is an entity unless something can own a block. In which case we're getting into like entity relationships, which is like kind of down here. Entity relations, where you basically, you can create a graph. So you could say entity eats, entity apples, entity Bob. You can say Bob eats apples. So you can define relations. So in that case, I think like we could say something like Bob is in block, or Bob. I mean, if you have a position, you could say that. Then you could say Bob is at position. And then you could have like or you could say something like Bob is targeting this position or moving to this position. And we could say something like, grab me all of the entities that are moving. So there is a strong advantage to doing it this way. It's just maybe a little more intensive in terms of memory. I need to do a lot more reading. This guy is doing some very tricky stuff with using the high bits of a number for these things. I don't want to get into that. I think I'm just going to bite the bullet and have them be separate things. But it is a nice way to say that we could also do a bit set of like all the different, like if I have a fairly finite set of components, which I do, and this isn't an engine, so we're not going to be making component types at runtime. Like we're going to know all of our components at compile time. So we could just do flags, honestly. We could do like a component flag. Right now we have a deck types or block types enum here that's a flag. And that lets you know what things are here. That's because a block is a space that would have a floor and a wall and stuff like that. We could similarly have an entity flag that's like, what are you composed of? Can have that. It's tempting. There's some options here. I need to think about it more. Similarly, I don't know why I made my manager a class when that could also just be an interface. Because all it defines is like a run and maybe a few other functions that it needs to implement. Fool box. Oh no. Red alert. Raise the shields. Target weapons. All crew prepare to defend. Repel borders. That's what they say. Hey, Foolbox, welcome in. Welcome, Raiders. How are you doing, Foolbox? How did the Next Fest go for you? That was so cool. So cool to see Block Shop in the Next Fest. Hey, NanoDev. Hey, Anonymous97885. It's good to see you. You don't want us in here? No, I want you in here. That's just I'm trying to lean into the red alert. Trying to lean into these sound effects, these blatantly copyright infringing Star Trek sound effects. I'm doing great. The project is going okay. Next Fest was nice. You basically double your wish lists. Hell yes. Hell yes. Projects is going okay. We kind of are at a kind of static feature set here. So if I didn't explain what I was doing before, chat, we're making an FTL-like, FTL faster than light. We're making kind of a Star Trek kind of style game where you know, you're mainly managing crew movement and, oh God, we went straight to ads. Hey, bro, heart. Well, this is awkward. I get rated and immediately go to ads. All right, well, while we're waiting for ads so I can do the, like, this is what we're working on spiel. How's everyone? How's everyone's week gone? What are you working on now, Fullbox, now that the Next Fest is over? Hey, bro, heart. I've seen the spuds. I've seen some of the spud updates you've been posting in the Discord. Those look great. Nano, how's everyone doing? How's everyone's projects going? They should have subbed faster. Yeah, exactly. You just finished chapter 2 of 3 last night. Took like 4 hours. That's 4 hours isn't too bad. I assume you mean 4 hours to just wrap everything up, not to like write the whole chapter. You're writing out the story. It's like 10 minutes of cutscenes. Oh, cool, cool. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna need like a cutscene manager eventually. I need like a scripted cutscene system. All right, 1 minute till we're back from ads, and then I can go into my sales pitch here. Chat gave a lot of potato puns that are going straight in the game. Hell yeah, that is predominantly what chat is good for. Puns. At least my chat. Y'all just stuck in ads. It's a real shame. I want to get it. I want to get to this. You're missing everything. Help. No worries. We're waiting. I was wondering why Fullbox wasn't responding to me. Yeah, I'm laying out the whole picture. You're missing the whole thing. All right. We're back, hopefully. All right, welcome back, Raiders. I'm so sorry. The timing was brutal. I guess that's how you defend yourself against a raid. You just immediately run ads. All right, welcome back. Yeah, they truly are. But pre-rolls are the worst kind, so we take you choose the lesser of two evils, right? So anyway, we're making an FTL-like, which is you know, kind of riffing on FTL Fast and Light, the classic subset game. Yeah, kill the pre-rolls for the greater good. So we're making this kind of a thing. It's kind of a tactics, 3D tactics thing. Instead of the top-down flat 2D interface of FTL, we're going for a stacked 3D interface. We're doing like the 3D chess of FTL. So your primary function is going to be controlling crew, managing power distribution, all the same kind of stuff, repairing systems as an FTL, but just kind of in a different setting, different environment. To that end, we've been working on a shipbuilding tool for me that may or may not end up in the final game as something people can use. So I'm gonna try to make something different than I normally make. So we can lay out, let's lay out the top of our deck here. Let's go for this kind of subtly winged shape. And we'll lay out some interior stuff here. So you can see the flickering. We have a compartmentalization system, so we can tell whether something's inside or outside space, which is super crucial for those FTL, like, you know, atmospheric decompressions and things like that. Apologies, my upstairs neighbor seems to be moving furniture. All right, so we're gonna make some rooms here. We're gonna attempt to make some rooms here. Still working on the tool, but we can make these, put in some walls here, some doors. We can make a single door, a double door, put another single door over here. So we can kind of define these spaces, put a little closet here, I guess. Go up here, turn this around so we can finish this. We can rotate, we can cut away. So we have what I consider the fundamentals of the visibility system. I'm not super happy with the semi-transparent doors, but we have this tool, and we can make multiple levels to the deck. So we can fill this in here. Maybe put in an airlock. We probably need an airlock so you can get to the outside. That's not an airlock though, because it's, you know, it's just a door straight to the outside. But speed is speed is key. XCOM editor looking, yeah. No worries, Freelansky. We got rated by Foolbox, and we're kind of just showing the fools what we've been working on here. Our little editor tool here. So I'm imagining these kind of stacked ship designs that are connected by like turbo lifts. And for now, this is just for me, but we've done some interesting things, like we've separated the rendering data from the game data. So this is just, that's how we're able to rotate the tile map so easily. The rendering is just a view into the game data. So we can do some interesting things. There's a more secure airlock here. But these shapes kind of suck. I can just basically make flying housing projects. So we're working on that as well. So we've made some new assets. So I've made some, like, I've drawn up some curved assets. But this kind of violates some of the basic assumptions that I've made in the system that we have so far. So we're working on rewriting this system to be able to accommodate cool things like sloped or curved hull pieces. Because at the moment we just assume that we're just working with square blocks. Thank you, Jerv Norsk, for the follow. Really appreciate that. Thank you, Raiders, for hanging out. But anyway, Foolbox, I was asking what you're working on now that the Next Fest is over. We're working on miniaturized versions of these things. Because we're thinking about how we're going to handle ship proximity stuff too, and I think we're going to have a zoomed in level where you are like directing crew and stuff like that, and we're going to have a zoomed out level that's miniaturized, where that's where you do the things where you like select a weapon system and target another ship. So we're going to have two kind of different screens, which I've been trying to get an idea of the scale. So I've been kind of mocking it up. Like here's just a full volume. If a ship just consisted of, like, this is a Borg cube. This is the Borg cube of our world. And then so you'd have this at full scale. And then, you know, if you zoomed out, you'd get something more like this. So you'd get like your ship opposite the other ship. I want to do some more stuff where like positionality matters more. So like maybe the ship is on the other side of you, or you turn your ship. So your orientation relative to the other ship matters. Obviously you can't see because these are just squares or cubes. But we're gonna try to have a couple different scales there too. I think it'll be interesting. This looks like big box, you know, like everything. Okay, so you're working on, you like the editor? Yeah, I'm happy with the editor. We're kind of rebuilding it in C#, which has been an experience. You're working on finishing the game, doing some prototyping on some new machines, and then just going to make a ton of levels. Yeah, content phase. Level selector, optimization, some visual polish. Yeah, so just a little bit of everything. Yeah, Full Box and I are both fans of boxes. We're both pro box. So we could just keep going. We're gonna have like 5 or 6 decks available to build on in this game. It's gonna be pretty wild. So I'm hoping to have lots of rooms. I'm hoping to do the thing that like Star Trek doesn't do, where you can actually have like people's like bunks and stuff. You can actually have like a barracks room, like a mess hall, cargo bay. But yeah, we need to work on making this, being able to create actual silhouettes with this and not just these horrible box monsters. That's kind of the focus. Yeah, this looks terrible. But it works, so, you know, we have the functionality. The big box lobby might come after me. Oh, no. Coming out in December? That's so exciting. Everyone check out Block Shop by the mighty Full Box. I'll shout you out even though everyone in here came from you, so... I'll still do it. It's tradition. So there's an engine bug or there's an engine error that I keep getting when I modulate tile cells. Add condition PLM root. I'd be more concerned about this, but we're about to change the fundamental way that this works, so I'm not super concerned about it. But I can tell you what we're kind of doing now, because you might be like, why the hell were you in like C#? What were you doing? Oh yeah, Two Nerdy Nerds. They got their game coming up even sooner. 11/11. Celebrate Armistice Day this year by checking out Two Nerdy Nerds. Go check out the nerds. I can't shout you out yet, Bernardo, but I will. You're co-working? Yeah, we're co-working. That's what we're doing. That's why we hang out here. It's a good time. But if we're kind of going to change everything. I'm making a new paradigm here where we have this game. We're basically going to split the rendering and the UI from the game data completely. So the board, which is going to be like where all of the game pieces get rendered under, and the UI will still be in here. And they'll feed up into the game system. And the game system is this C# script here. And that's just going to feed all of this stuff from the Godot land into a C# set of system that's kind of modeled around ECS, not exactly. It's 100% not ECS, not -ECS, that's what I'm calling it. And so we're going to use a systems heavy way of processing where we split the data from the logic. And so we'll have managers. So like this will call the main manager will call all of the other managers, passing in, you know, stuff if they need to, like selectively running them. Like if we don't have any view commands, don't run the view manager. Like do a bunch of stuff like that. Similarly, if we don't have any game commands, we don't have any edit commands, don't run the edit manager. So we're working on stuff like that. We're working on a framework here that will let us run everything and iterate over all this simulation stuff performantly. You don't remember what that is? 1111. It goes by many names. I feel like nowadays it's called like, what is it called? What is it called in the States nowadays? It's Veterans Day out here nowadays, but I think of it as Armistice Day because it's the whole on the 11th. You should it's European history, two nerdy nerds. On the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, the guns fell silent over Europe. The guns will fall silent and the cat cafe will pop off. Yeah. Everyone needs to be wearing poppies on launch day. You gotta be aware of your own history, Bernardo. Come on. Quick, yeah, mod the poppies into the game for a launch day. Yeah, I want to have a variant of every single character sprite in the game ready for launch day, all of whom are wearing like a poppy. XFOF came here with the full raid and kind of died for a sec. No worries, XFOF. We're working on an FTL-like here. We're kind of working on a pseudo isometric game that's kind of like FTL faster than light, like a kind of little Star Trek kind of style game. We're still working mainly on the tool that lets us build the ship. That's primarily what we've been working on. It's also Polish Independence Day. Oh, the more you know. Fascinating. That's pretty cool. So yeah, we've been thinking about how we structure our components. I want to implement a system where all components are basically entities so that components can have other components, And I'm thinking of doing more of an array of structures kind of way of assembling that, but I need to start making components that we're actually going to use. So let's put the ship in here. Let's put all of these files here. So put the ship in here, put the block in here. So position's an interesting struct because it really only matters to something that has a single tile or a single vector position or vector. We need like an AABB for things that are volumes. We could call it a volume, we could call it a space. And a space could be... I kind of don't want a space to just be a single tile, because that's kind of a waste if we have a minimum and a maximum value and they overlap. In that case, you would just use a position. Wait a minute, you added a shader to this image. It didn't used to have a static like that. Oh no, it always did. It always did full box. This is a render in that I did in Photoshop. I can show you the original pixel art version of it. The doodliest catch. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. Let me see if I can find the original. Here's the raw pixel art version. Which is good. But, you know, I wanted to simulate what it would look like with post-processing. So I kind of just did my own render. I wanted to see what it would look like with bloom and color correction and things like that. Which we'll eventually have, but this is like the raw version of it. I like it in a lot of ways. I think I maybe went overboard when I was doing the render. I like how crisp the view screens are and stuff, but in many ways this is cleaner and more you know, more viewable compared to this. But this just has a mood to it that I really enjoy. You just notice shaders a lot more now, you guys? Have you been working on shaders? Because that'll do it. Done. They're outside the cafe, so you can't see them, but they're there. Okay, good. As long as there's poppies everywhere. The bloom is nice. Yeah, I like it. I haven't dug into the Godot effects very much, but for screen space effects, I'm not very concerned. I'm kind of nervous about trying to use their lighting system with an isometric, with like a stacked isometric grid like I have. I'm kind of hesitant. I'm gonna try it, but I'm kind of cautious about what I'm gonna be able to do with their lighting system. But screen space, like post-processing, that's just taking the camera output and doing the post-processing, that should be relatively trivial to do. You want to do something with shaders yourself? Trying to find some shader solutions for yourself. Yeah, that's like how I implemented outlines for my crew, for crew people. There's like a shader that just says simple outlines, and I'm also doing a shader for selecting something. It's not inlines, but it would be like, I don't know what to call it, because like doors have these black outlines, so it's not an outline per se because it's not drawing a line around the sprite, but it's like, I guess it's an inline. It's a special kind of inline, so that when you mouse over a door, the outlines of the door will light up, like the drawn outlines, not like the, you know what I mean, or you don't, depending on how well I communicated it. Outline shader is pretty easy. Yeah, exactly. That's about the complexity of shader that I can handle. You a more in-depth shader you're trying to set up? Nice. Very nice. All right. So to me, what made it so that I kind of want components on components is this idea of the ship. So the ship needs like a center because it needs to be able to rotate around the center. Maybe I should call it origin. I'm gonna call it center. So a ship needs to have a center that it can rotate about. I almost think simple structs like position probably shouldn't be an entity. I think that's too low level to consider an entity. Because like a ship has a center. It doesn't, the concept of a position for a ship doesn't make a lot of sense because it's a volume. If you need something that acts like a position, you could use the center, because a ship needs to rotate around something. So we need like a volume. So let's make something called a volume. That seems like something that we could have. That may or may not be a component. Unless you want to specify that all of these things are in a space, and you want to be able to get to it via the space. Which is actually not unreasonable. Maybe volume is a component. Now, volume is kind of going to be like our AABB, I think. Your friend blew your mind with Godot's VFX. He had some shockwave looking thing that bends what's on the other side. Ooh, and it worked off the camera view. Yeah, that kind of stuff will be wild. You think you'll do a shader class or something to learn more? The teacher becomes the student. You've done some GLSL before, so you expect the thing in Godot to not be too hard. No, that's true. That's true. If you know GLSL, you should be fine. The Godot shader language, I think, is even a little easier because I think they've added some features on top of GLSL. I think they've added some features on top of the lower level shader languages so that you just don't have to, just some little quality of life stuff. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure you've got some in there. Always wear dark shirts on stream, guys. That way nobody can see your pit stains when you stretch. Just life hack for everyone in this remote working world we live in, where everyone's on camera all the time. The streamer surveillance state. All right. So let's look at our position. We'll set this up similarly in that we want to do all of the nice things. We want to be equatable. I don't want to look at iEquatable. Bool equals T other equatable T. Maybe I went too complicated when I was doing this interface. So we'd just say iEntity equatable. Maybe we do it with some kind of generics here. Maybe we just need to be able to compare other iEntities. If we box entities because they're implementing the interface, I don't think that matters for just entity comparisons. 'Cause you're not going to very often be like, is this entity the same as this other entity? I feel like that's going to be fairly rare. Sick life hack. Thank you, Doodly Sketch. How's it going? You wish it was warm enough to be sweating here? Oh, we're still in our San Francisco summer. Normally our summer here is like late August to like early October, but I swear our summer started like a month late, so we're like still in it. I'd have to double check the kind of forecast, but yeah, our summer is not set to end until like the end of the month at best. It'll probably fall will probably start before our summer ends here, which is appropriate, I think. But yeah, I prefer cold weather. I prefer cold. I don't like this hot, dry weather. I moved up here to be next to the sea, to be next to the cold, foggy, dewy sea, the briny sea. C#, Lucas G. Molina, yes. We're doing this insane thing where we've decided to take our basic process, which is like the UI feeds into gameplay, feeds into rendering. And we've decided to basically have it be like the input handler feeds into this game manager, which is in C# land. The game managers do all of this stuff. Managers, yeah, the game managers. So the input handler feeds to the game managers in C# land. They do all of the gameplay simulation and stuff. If they need to output anything, they put it back into the scenes. They send it back to the nodes, and then the scenes talk to the input handler, which talks to the game managers, which post the scenes. And then you just have that, and that's going to be our basic UI gameplay rendering loop. And so for this middle chunk, we're doing this in C#, partly for speed, partly for the lulls. We're gonna end up with this kind of weird system where we have like, this is kind of what I just described, but in weird state. Got a dip, have fun. No worries, Freelansky. Thanks for hanging out. Have a great rest of your day here. So yeah, our auto loads, which we might have some other auto loads. We might have like an audio player or some other things, but maybe not. Talk to the game manager. The game manager will have all of these sub managers that it will trigger. Like we'll talk to the state manager. We'll see what states we're in. Depending on our states, we'll call other managers that might call sub managers. They'll operate all on data. The data won't belong to any of the managers. And then maybe there's a scene manager that puts out the scenes back. And then we start the cycle anew, because the scenes, if they're mouse pickable, whether they're UI or, you know, sprites or whatever, they talk to the input handler, and the input handler begins the process again. So something like this. This is obviously an incredibly simplified version of what we're going to end up with, but this is kind of the idea that we're talking about here. Ooh, architecture. I know, I'm trying to be good about using Obsidian. I did this whole stupid thing last night where I thought about like an insane entity diagram, which was like, I was going to split my entities into 3 kinds of things, like elements, which are the things like position, which can only ever belong to something else. Like they never exist by themselves. Like, well, that's not true. That's where the analogy breaks down almost immediately. But an element is just a single thing. That's it. It could exist by itself, but it's just a single thing. And then they can come together to form compounds. Compounds can come together to form compounds. So you can, compound A and compound E could form compound C or whatever. That's probably a poor way to name that. It should probably be the other way around. Who cares? Who cares? And then compounds could maybe form mixtures, and mixtures are distinct because they could like have different ratios. So like maybe a mixture has compound A, B, and C. Maybe has more C's. Maybe there's like a ship might have more and more crew joining it over time. Or it might have no crew. The crew might all of a sudden like go away. So I've thought about this. I think this is maybe over complicated. So I'm kind of moving away from this kind of a hierarchy. But it was helpful to think about for a couple hours. I think we're just going to move to a straightforward. Components can belong to other components, and most components are, and all components are entities. So I just need to decide where that dividing line is beneath which something isn't a component. It's just a field on a component. I feel like position is maybe one of those things. And instead of having a position component, we have like a directional component, which has like a heading. Or we have a movable that has a position and a heading. But now we get to the whole like, what if you're bigger than one tile? And then instead you need like a volume to represent you, because you exist in 3D space and you're larger than a single thing. So I don't know. So here's our entity if we want the entity to just be able to do at least this much. We also don't need to define any of this here, but I did because I was thinking about it. Could have defined it somewhere else. Something like ECS. Yeah, Lucas. We're not calling it ECS because I found over the weekend I was calling it ECS. This is deep. Yeah, this is too deep for you. You just want to make games. Yeah, like Rect, Foolbox. There's no 3D version of Rect, though. I mean, the 3D version of Rect is AABB, so that's kind of what we're doing. I prefer get Rect as a as a function call, though. I like get Rect. Yeah. But yeah, Lucas, I had named everything, like instead of managers we had systems, and we had like systems and entities and components, and like I found that like when I officially called it an ECS, I started making decisions about the framework that were purely in service of the framework. Like there were things that you would do if you were building an ECS, and I was like, I'm not building an ECS, I'm building a game that happens to use something like an ECS. So I stopped doing that. I renamed everything pretty much. I mean, it's still using the word component, but I feel like you can't get away from the word component. And I might still be using the word entity, but it's going to be different. It's going to be weird. I might go back to using the word system. I like manager, kind of. But I might go back to it. But I'm trying to be careful not to just, because an entity component system is great for Unity. An entity component system is great for a game engine. Yeah, C#, Enomoth. An entity component system is great for a game engine because a game engine doesn't know what the user is going to do. A game engine doesn't know, whether we're talking about like the classical game object, like in Unity, the original Unity ECS, which is like their game object system, or you're talking about like dots ECS or whatever, like whatever entity component system you're talking about. Usually you implement that at the engine level because you don't know what you're going to be putting together. I know everything that I'm going to be putting together. I mean, I might not know now, but by the time the game is done, there won't be any novel or new components. So I'm tempted to just take some shortcuts. There's also some cases that we want, which are like really hard to do in an ECS. Like a ship wants a list of blocks, which is its like what it consists of. And it's very uncouth to have a buffer like this on an entity, but we're probably going to do it. We might figure out some tricks to how to do this. Like we might make use of inline arrays or something wild. But we're not trying to get too crazy. Foolbox, you want to get back to C#? Have you been mostly using, because you're teaching game dev. You don't use C# in Block Shop, I'm guessing. I've never seen it. Where have you been using? Oh yeah, Rhea, I didn't want to guess, but I thought you were teaching Unity. How long until you convince them to switch the curriculum from Unity to Godot? When are you gonna get them to make that? So the ship is a complex case here, which is interesting to me, because the ship has a center. It has an array of blocks, which is like a flattened multi-dimensional array. Flattened array. Indexed into by. So it's going to be x. It's x plus y times x extent times 2. No, that doesn't make sense. Y times x size. You would call it size x plus z times size y. So we'll do that. We'll do the typical typical flattened array for that. But this is an awkward thing to have in an entity. Or a component, even, for that matter. So we need to think about how we're going to do that a little bit. It's not too bad because a ship just needs to iterate through its own blocks, so it's fine if it just loads up the array, iterates through its whole array, and then we move on to the next entity. We're not going to, like... That's not going to thrash the cache too badly as long as I use refs to make sure we're just operating on the actual memory of the array and not just copying shit all over the place. 2 of the students are playing with Godot already. You're like, no, don't you want a job? That's interesting. That's probably very true that all the jobs are for Unity still, but I feel like that's going to change. I feel like that's going to change relatively soon. I need to think about how we want to use the ship. So a ship needs a size. So let's look at our volume. A volume would be an interesting thing to make. So a volume is going to have like a public... Why did I say public like that? It's going to have like a public... oh, they think... Oh, is volume already a word in C#? Volume. No. I should probably just call it an AABB. Because I don't think there is one. AABB. Godot has an AABB, but it's floats. I kind of like volume. But maybe AABB is better description of what we're doing. So you'd have like a public vector 3i, which is like min. Yep, it knows. Well, we want a maximum. Public. Let's add min, and then yeah, using Godot. It'll be a long switch, you think? And if you want to work in a big game studio, you're better with Unity and Unreal. Yeah, probably especially Unreal. If you want to go indie, they will soon be hiring for Godot all over the place. That's true. I don't know. I don't think I could do like a big studio personally, but that's probably why I just do this on the side. Rename. What do you want to rename it to? You want to name it AABB lowercase? Why? It's an acronym. What is telling you to do this? I don't like how... I love how Writer is very opinionated, but I also hate how it's opinionated. Add AABB to the abbreviations list. Yes. Solution, Digital Iliad, team shared. Digital Iliad personal. This computer. Let's do team shared. Yeah, AABB is an acronym. Let's chill out. Vector 3i is size. Size is just going to return. Yeah, max minus min. That makes a lot of assumptions about whether these are positive or negative, but I think it's fine. Something like that. We may or may not want a center to our AABB, because some AABBs might not have a center. Is that true? Yeah, some of them might rotate around other things. That's why I kind of want to call it a volume. You can't do Big Studio either. That's why you're trying your own thing. All right, you need to go eat something. Yeah, no worries. Thanks for hanging out. Go take care of the needs. Thanks for leaving the lurk. Appreciate the raid. Everyone go wishlist block shop, everybody. I need to start getting some stream commands so I can call out people's games. I'm gonna add that. We'll probably be wrapping up relatively soon as well. What are these different dot setting files? These are just code resource entries. Interesting. I'm gonna try to make a list of components tonight so that tomorrow we can actually just start making things. I'm getting I'm still not quite sure about how far down I want to do this. And I only got about 5 or 6 hours of sleep, so it's a bit of a struggle. So an interface doesn't care about the implementation, it just cares about having this function. I think I'm overdoing it when I'm actually declaring an implementation here. Unless an object is just going to rely on the iEntities implementation. But that's bad form. I need generics where it says like equals T, where T is an iEntity. So we'd say something like, bool equals T T other where T is an iEntity. That's essentially what we need. We don't need to override the object, I don't think. This I do want an implementation of, the object override. Or maybe not. Maybe I don't need an implementation of that. Maybe I can require a bool equals. The object override should. It's fine. This is good. The get hash code doesn't need to be here. This is all the iEntity needs to implement, right? We just need to be able to. We just need an equal. We just need to be able to equate another entity or another object that implements entity. That's all we need to define in this interface for now. Like, does it make sense to have required fields? No, does not. This is our entity interface. This should be fine. I think that's it. We might change a little bit of this. Something like this. Oh well, I gotta get to work, actually. So let's pay it forward. Pay it forward here. So if people are interested in C# Godot game dev, we're gonna go hang out with Sorcery Story, who is, in my mind, the preeminent C# Godot game dev, who I've learned a lot from. So we're gonna go hang out with her. But I really appreciate all the raiders for hanging around. Appreciate everyone else who came by. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back every weekday for the remainder of this week. Same time, same place here. We'll keep working on this. I'm gonna make a bunch of lists of components tonight, so hopefully we can actually start building things out and working towards replicating the current behavior we have in the new system. Yeah, I appreciate everyone for stopping by here and hanging out with me this fine day, and I will see you next time. Bye.